everyone, I'm Nicole with Guiding Echoes, the channel that is devoted to your spiritual and personal growth. And in today's video, I am answering a question that people ask me all the time, which is, how do I know if my house is haunted? So there is a difference between spirits that are just kind of passing through and the occasional paranormal experience. And by that, I mean maybe a door opens occasionally, or there's just something that happens once in a blue moon, versus a haunting. So a haunting is when you have regular activity in your home. And by regular, I mean it could be something that happens a few times a week, a few times a month. So there's constantly something happening in your home. So let's go ahead and go over the different signs that indicate your house could be haunted. The very first sign that I have for you is one that so many people dismiss, and I really wish they wouldn't. The first sign is an overwhelming feeling that something is watching you. You could be in the kitchen, you could be in the bathroom, you can be anywhere in your home, and you can be home alone, and you have this sense that something invisible, some type of force is watching you. And this will stir up that fight or flight response inside of you. So if no one is home, there's no one on the property, or even if there is someone home, but they're not in the vicinity near you, but you get this feeling that something's watching you, and you feel like you either have to stand your ground or hide or run away, that's an indication that there is an invisible force in your home that is observing you. So if you do have this sensation in your home, I would recommend that you don't dismiss it right away, because if you ever watch different ghost hunting shows or paranormal shows, or you speak to anyone who talks about how they lived in a haunted home, this is the first sign that comes up almost all the time across the board. They will tell you, I don't know what it is, but when I first walked into that house, I felt uncomfortable. I felt my skin crawl. I felt like something was watching me, even though no one was there. So that is the most prominent signal that first arises when people experience hauntings in their homes. The second sign that I have for you are knocks, tappings, or thuds that cannot be explained. So, for example, let's say you hear the sound of a box falling or something that makes a thud or a crash, and you go into the room where you heard the sound and there's nothing there that could have made that same sound. Or simultaneously, you may hear footsteps walking upstairs, and you go upstairs and there's no one there. You'll hear a tap on the wall, and you may check to see if there's any pipes or anything that run through the wall, and there's nothing. There is no explanation as to why this sound should be made. Also, I want to say it's very important for you to investigate the sounds. A lot of people will hear a tapping, or they'll hear some type of noise happening in the walls, and they freak themselves out thinking they've got a haunting, when really maybe the pipes are old, or there's some other explanation as to why they are hearing that sound. So just be observant of that. For example, if you live in an older home and the seasons start to change, so you're going from colder weather to warmer weather, what can happen is the materials and the pipes and different things in the home can begin to expand, and that makes noise. That can make an unearthly, creaky sound, and that can be rattling, that can be unnerving. So if you are hearing sounds in your home and you don't know where they're coming from, investigate them a little bit first, before you start thinking, oh my gosh, my house is haunted. Well, it could be, but that may not be the explanation for the noises. So that's why I say the second sign of a haunting are knocks, thuds, and tappings that cannot be explained. So that means that you've checked everything out in the room, you've checked out the walls, you've checked to see if there were any animals nearby, whatever it was that you needed to do, and there absolutely is no explanation as to why you were hearing those sounds. The third sign is that doors, cabinets, and drawers, and sometimes windows and curtains open and close on their own. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that you've seen the activity. It doesn't necessarily see that you watch the door open on its own, although that can happen. There are reports of that. It could simply be that you walk out of the kitchen for a few seconds or a few minutes, and when you come back in, you know nobody else has been in there, and yet the cabinet doors are open, or the drawers to the silverware or whatever is open too. And maybe it's all of them, maybe it's just a few, but regardless, you know that there was no draft in the house, there was no wind, there was no one in that area that could have opened those cabinet doors, and yet they are open. Number 4 on the list is consistent electrical occurrences. This could mean several things. So the most common one is the lights will flicker. Lights will flicker often, or your light bulbs are burning out faster than they should. When this happens, it's usually because the spirits in your home are trying to manifest, and it takes effort for them to open doors and to knock on the walls. So what they essentially do is they'll draw on the electrical currents of different light bulbs, and that's why they burn out so fast. So that's what they're drawing on. So they kind of start feeding on the energy of electricity so that they can have the energy that they need to be able to make physical manifestations. So that can be a knock on the door, it could be some of the other signs that we talk about a little bit later, but you'll notice that your light bulbs flicker a lot, or they burn out a lot, and it seems like you're constantly having to replace batteries too. So your batteries are constantly being drained. So that is a huge sign of a spirit in your home that is drawing off the energy so that they can get your attention, basically, because they're trying to make some type of physical manifestation. Other things that can happen with the electrical occurrences is your TV can go on and off on its own. The volume will go up and down on its own, usually up, to get our attention. There are reports of people who will hear voices coming from their radio through the white noise. So it won't be the voice of a radio host. It will actually be what people feel to be a disembodied voice that speaks through the white noise of the radio, or a speaker that's maybe on but not necessarily connected to anything. So there's a lot of different ways that electrical occurrences can happen when a ghost is trying to communicate through them. The 5th sign that your house is haunted is you are seeing things out of the corner of your eye. So you may see shadow figures, which is the most common, or you might actually see what looks like a person. You may actually see a full figure of a female or a male, or it might be half a figure. So what usually happens is when people first experience seeing something out of the corner of their eye, they dismiss it. Even if all the other signs that we've spoken about so far are there, they still dismiss it. They think it's their eyes playing tricks on them, or they think, well, maybe it was the shadow of a bird outside, or maybe it was a curtain. They start to think of what it could be. And that's smart. You want to do that, right? We always want to look for the most logical explanation of what's happening around us before we assume, oh, it's ghosts. We want to be smart about this. But more often than not, when you get that occurrence, I would say after 3 times, after the 3rd time it happens and there's no explanation for it, you can rest assured that you are seeing something. So I know it's normal to want to dismiss it and say, oh, that's nothing. Oh, it's my mind playing tricks on me. Oh, I'm scared, so I'm making things up. No, you're having that experience, and if there's other people in your home, they're probably having that experience too. So just ask about it. Ask if anyone else happens to see something out of the corner of their eye, and more often than not, there will be other people who collaborate that story with you and validate that, yeah, they see it too. The 6th sign is that you hear voices. So, unnerving, I know. This can happen at any time of the day. It can happen at night. It can happen at dawn. It can happen during a specific span of time, but there are disembodied voices. And there's a few different ways that these voices may communicate. There may be a few different sounds that you notice. So the first thing may be like a bit of a mumbling. right? You just hear some type of mumbling, but you don't really know what that voice is saying. And when you look around, of course, there's nothing to explain it. No one else is home. No one called you. The radios are not on. The TV's not on. There is no explanation for that voice. So you may just hear like mumblings, some type of something that's incoherent. So there's that type of a vocal haunting, vocal communication. The other thing that you may hear is someone who actually does speak to you. So you may hear someone say your name. You may hear someone say a name. You may hear someone say a full sentence or a word. So this takes a lot of energy for a spirit to project that. So while this isn't all that uncommon, it's not something that will happen a lot. So if you have heard a disembodied voice in your home, but maybe you've only heard it once and you also have some of the other signs that we've talked about, this could be evidence of the spirit communicating with you. And it's one of those occurrences that doesn't happen a lot because it's hard to do. It requires a lot of energy. You have to remember, they don't have a physical body anymore. They are speaking to you through the ethereals. They are projecting from one dimension into this one. So that's not easy. And let's give them some credit on that at least. Like that takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of focus and intention and projection and energy for them to do. The seventh sign is that you have seen a full apparition. And when I say full apparition, I don't necessarily mean from toe to the top of the head, although that's very likely, that is possible. It could even be like from the waist up or waist down. So you do see something that is full. It's not just a shadow figure. It's not just a silhouette. You're actually seeing a complete and entire being. And maybe you see this for just a few seconds. Maybe it lasts a little bit longer. So if you and or others in the home have seen a full apparition, that is absolutely a sign that there is a spirit in your home with you. Now, so far we've gone over the 7 most common signs of what I would call a mild haunting. And for those of you who are living with this, you're probably saying, that's not mild. Do you have any idea how intrusive and uncomfortable this is? Actually, yes, I do. But when I say mild, I mean that these are spirits that are sharing space with you, but they're not trying to cause any harm. They're probably not trying to get you to run away, and they don't want to hurt you. But now we're moving into the territory of hauntings where the spirits are not so nice. And as uncomfortable as these are, I feel like we do need to address it if we are going to give the full spectrum of what haunted homes can potentially be like. So the 8th sign is that things break. And every once in a while, in more of a mild, non-threatening haunting, that can happen. Ghosts bump into things. They try to manifest something. Maybe they want to tap on something and they manifest too much and they push something over. Accidents happen even in the spirit world. And it can be frustrating, yes, but usually nothing to be too concerned about. But if things are breaking often, that is something to be concerned about. So if you notice that you have a lot of things in your home that are breaking and crashing and falling, that is absolutely a sign of a not so happy spirit dwelling in your home. Number 9 would be unexplained scratches or bruises on your body or on the bodies of people around you. I should also take the time to say there could be scratches even on the wall. There can be marks in the walls or on your cabinets, even in your carpet, on your hardwood floors that weren't there before. So there's going to be some type of physical manifestation of something that has touched you or something in your home. This is alarming as well because for 2 reasons. It takes a lot of energy for spirit to be able to do this. It takes a lot of energy. and more energy, I would say, than those that speak. And it's also very intentional. So when you see claw marks on something, you see scratch marks, or when you notice bruises or scratches on your own body that can't be explained, that's something to be concerned about. On that note, I also want to say that if you happen to wake up and you see scratches or marks or bruises, that's not always an indicator of a malicious spirit. Not always. The reason being is because it's ridiculous the amount of harm we can do to ourselves on accident when we're asleep, when we are dead asleep. I have these ridiculously long nails. So for me, it's not always unusual for me to wake up with a scratch or something on me that I know I've done. Because when I do go into a deep sleep, I can thrash around pretty good. I'm not even having night terrors. I'm a restless sleeper. I don't know why. But anyways, so it's not unusual for me to actually claw myself and, I shouldn't say claw myself, scratch myself. And maybe I had an itch while I was sleeping, or maybe a fly landed, who knows? But I know I have a tendency to do this. I won't explain to you how I know that that's the issue. And then also, if we are in bed with someone and we're sleeping really well and they're sleeping really well, and there's not a lot of things that wake us up out of a deep sleep, scratches and bruises can sometimes just be an accident that happened while we were sleeping by ourselves or with someone else. So when we wake up with unexplained scratches or bruises or owies, whatever term you want to use for a mark on your body, you do want to check to see if that is possibly something that you did on your own. One time, I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but you know what? I'm always giving you guys TMI on this channel anyway. One time I woke myself up because I was rolling over and I took my arm and just thump like over onto the nightstand. So I ended up having, I don't have it anymore because this was years ago, but ended up having this nasty bruise like right here on my arm. And wow, was it fun to explain that to my coworkers. So I was wearing hoodies and stuff for a while because when people saw it, they thought like maybe someone punched me or grabbed me or something had happened. It's like, no, I really did do this to myself while I was sleeping. It's how I woke up. Yay me. So just be aware that there are different ways that you can hurt yourself at night. And if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, well, I'm a light sleeper. You know what? I usually am too. Lots of light noises and sensations wake me up, but even as a light sleeper, we still go into a deep sleep that can be hard to wake us up out of. So what I would recommend doing is wear some type of a device like a Fitbit that measures your sleep. And if you find that you did have a light sleep throughout the night and you still wake up with some type of scratch or bruise, and your device is showing you had a light sleep, which means that should have woken you up, that can give you some clues. And I would still say check to make sure you didn't give that to yourself on your own. If it's a scratch or a bruise, see if you can reach it. Like, can you reach where the scratch was? Is there anything else around the environment that could have caused that? Because remember, again, we want to be sure that we are checking other explanations too. It can't always just be, oh, it was a ghost. The ghost did it. Like, we want to be smart about this. And sometimes we do share space in our home with spirits. And if there are things breaking or we do have scratches on ourselves and we did that, or there's another explanation, we want to be mindful of that too. Because if we are in fact sharing space with a spirit, we don't want them to make this thing out to be malicious if it's not, because then that's uncomfortable for everyone, including the spirit, okay? So that's why I want to be so mindful and so careful in presenting this information, because I really want to make sure we're not jumping to conclusions. I want to be sure that we're checking out other avenues too. The 10th sign revolves around your animals, your pets. An indication that there is something in your home is that your animals hear, sense, or see something that you don't. And you know what this looks like, right? It's when your dog is staring at a corner and starts growling and getting really upset, and there is absolutely nothing there. Usually this is paired with the feeling that there is something there, that there's something watching you too. So it's usually combined with that sense. It also looks like when your cat refuses to go to one area of the house, and maybe he just kind of looks at it and walks away, or he's just distrusting about a certain area. And that's probably an area where you've had some type of experience, or you've heard a disembodied voice, or there's something that has happened there, okay? And this sign can be really negative when your animals become very scared. So it's one thing when your animals stand up for you or for their house and they're growling at something or they're barking at something. And by the way, sometimes spirits can be playful and they love our animals. And so you might find that your dog isn't growling at the corner. He's wagging his tail and getting excited about something at the corner, and maybe barking and spinning and looking at you and looking at something you don't see or someone you don't see. So there are ways in which this can be playful and very positive. It can also have a darker tone, which is why I included it in this portion of the video. So if your animal, like your dog or your cat, starts hiding under the bed and won't come out, and that's unusual behavior for them, that's an indication that there's something that is scaring them in the home. So if you've had your pets before you moved into this location, you should be very well aware of what is normal behavior for that pet. I know it can be a little more difficult if you've moved a pet into this location while you were already moving there. So for example, you didn't have the pet before you moved in, you got the pet afterwards. But even still, there are behaviors that we know are normal or abnormal for the animals and the pets that we bring into our home. So if you take your dog out for a walk and he's friendly to everybody and he's wagging his tail and he's just this awesome pet to be around and he's generally happy, and when you go home his demeanor changes and there's places he won't go into and he's either normally vicious or there's just so many different ways this can manifest. You know what that looks like for you. Also, I want to say that in order for this to prove that there are not proof, and in order for this to also fall in alignment with the house being haunted, several of the other signs have to be there too, because animals can be weird. Let's be honest. Animals can be odd. And if you have a rescue animal, maybe that dog was always beaten at home, so he's afraid to be home, but he's great when he's outside. You know, maybe you bring in a cat who has always hated the kitchen, would never go into his kitchen in previous homes because maybe something bad happened to him or he wasn't acclimated to, who knows. So an animal that has odd behavior but none of the other signs of a haunting are there, then this probably isn't a haunting. This is strange animal behavior. In that case, get an animal trainer. You know, help your dog or your cat through whatever he or she is going through. The 11th sign that I have for you is the people and the animals in your home are becoming sick. And this sickness can show itself in different ways. It can show as depression. It can show as incoherence, mental incoherence, and it can also be a physical sickness. So it can be flu-like symptoms. It could even show up as other diseases. When you have the type of energy in your home that makes people and animals sick, it's usually, not all the time, but it's usually the animals that get sick first, and they get sick to the point of exhaustion, to the point of having to be put down. So this happens because on an energy level, when we have spirits with us that are angry, that don't want us around, that are frustrated, that are constantly causing havoc for us, there's really two things that are happening there. One is that they're just wearing us down, right? If you've ever lived with a person who's negative, and I'm not talking in spirit at this point. If you've ever just lived with someone who's a constant complainer, who puts you down, who's angry over everything, you know how that can take a toll on your health and your mental well-being, right? You know that that alone can make you depressed. It can make you sleep deprived. It can make you unmotivated. It's horrible to be around people who are overtly negative. That's tough to be around, and that can make us sick. So when we are living with a spirit that is opening or shutting doors or talking to us or breaking things or making our animals and our children scared, or we see apparitions or things out of the corner of our eye, that's distracting, that can be unnerving. It's a lot to deal with because we don't feel safe in our own home. And we don't feel safe in our own home because we don't know what this thing wants, and our routines get thrown off. Our own living situation feels beyond our control, right? So that's frustrating. On top of that, there's also the energy level. And when something is affecting our energy on purpose, and if something around us knows how to manipulate energy, they can absolutely make us sick. And it's possible that we are dealing with a being or an entity or whatever you want to call it at this point, that not only knows how to draw energy from light bulbs and electronics, but possibly knows how to draw energy from us too. And if something is working with our chi and our aura and our energy, which is something not a lot of people like to talk about because that's scary and it's creepy and it's weird, and I agree with all those things. But the truth is that people can draw on our energy and aura and all that too if they know what they're doing, sometimes even if they don't know what they're doing. But spirit can do this too, and it can make us sick. Okay, it can make us very, very sick. So these are the signs of living in a home that is haunted. And again, I want to say there's a difference between a haunting and just spirits passing through. A haunting means that these things are happening regularly. It means that there is a spirit or spirits. I believe there's usually more than one that has made itself at home in your home and is decided that that's where it lives. That's where it resides. And there's several different reasons as to why that can happen, and I will go over those topics in another video. So now that we've been through all of this, you're probably wondering, okay, I have some of these signs, what do I do about it now? So if you were able to identify with any of the signs from 1 through 7, my best advice for you is talk to the ghost. Talk to the spirits in your home. They may be trying to get your attention, but they're probably not trying to scare you. So what you can do at that point is just say to them, look, I know that you're here. I get that you're here. Thank you for making me aware of your presence. You know, I hope we can find a way to coexist together. Just so you know, I really don't like it when you open the cabinet doors. Please don't do that. It freaks me out. I don't think you meant anything by it, but please don't do this anymore. It really makes me unsettled. And just lay out the boundaries for them. Tell them what it is that you expect out of them. That is perfectly okay. And it's no different than working with a roommate. You know, if you're living with someone, sometimes you need to have boundaries put in place so that both people know what to expect out of that living situation. And it's the same thing here. So give your ghosts the benefit of the doubt and let them know what actions you don't like. I would also say, give them some leeway, right? Just acknowledge that they live there too, and there's going to be certain things they do that you may not necessarily like. Maybe they like to whistle sometimes. Let them whistle, let them talk, let them sing, let them do that. It's giving them a sense of joy. Just go with it. But you may say, please don't whistle or sing when I'm trying to sleep at night. Like, can that be the boundary? Can we do that? So be mindful of what you're asking for. And like I said, I would still give them some space or room so they can be themselves and project themselves in a healthy way that's not hurting anybody. Now, if you experience signs 1 through 7 and then some, it is possible that you have a hostile entity in your home. And of course, we want to address that, and we need to make this a priority. So there are a few different things you can do. I would say the most important thing at this point is to figure out what that spirit wants. So you can call in a medium, or you can also call in a team of paranormal investigators in your area. So invite these people into your home to find out what the spirit wants and what the spirit is, because we do want to find out if this is a malicious being or possibly a being that was even clumsy and didn't mean to break things and didn't mean to hurt you. And maybe your animals are getting sick from something else. You know, maybe it's not actually an entity in your home that's causing people to get sick. So we want to invite people into our space that have a better understanding of how all of this works, and will look for explanations outside of what we know what to look for, if that makes sense. So I would recommend bringing a medium in, or a team of paranormal investigators. If you are 100% certain, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that what is in your home is malicious and does want to cause you harm, then my recommendation would be to, I would move. That's what I would do. If there is activity in the home that is unsafe, it's making people sick, it's breaking things, it feels hostile, even once that thing was gone, I myself probably wouldn't feel safe in that home again. So for me, I would move. If that's an option for you and that's what you want to do, you can do that. That's what I would do. The other option, if you don't want to move or you can't move or whatever your situation is that you can absolutely call in a priest. 100%. You can call in a priest or a pastor or a prayer group to come anoint your home and to pray in different areas in your home and around your home too, because we want to get that area completely covered in prayer. We want to call in angels and guardians and divine source to come push that entity out, okay? And don't try to do this alone. If you do this alone, you're asking for trouble. You need people who are skilled in the art of working with these type of entities and energies, okay? So there is that. And of course, you can also call in a shaman. I've known a few shamans. They're wonderful people. I have not had the opportunity to work with a shaman when they are pushing an energy out of their home. My understanding is that they'll usually look for portals and they'll close them, because sometimes what happens is there is open portals in your home that's allowing different energies to come in. So they'll close those and they will work with their tools and their understanding of the earth and why spirits get trapped here and help that spirit to move along. Or if it's a stubborn spirit and it doesn't want help moving along, they have different ways of pushing that entity out anyway. So they have a wide range of tools and methods that they work with. Okay, so again, don't do this on your own. If this is something malicious and nasty and it's been hurting you and your kids and your property and your animals or whatever it is, don't try to combat it on your own. You could make it upset, even more angry, and you could make things worse. So bring in a team of experts, all right? Okay. Now, if you have any other questions or comments, or you'd even like to tell us about your own experience with the haunting, you can put that in the comment section down below. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, I would like to welcome you to the Guiding Echoes community. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe to this channel. Here on this channel, we love to talk about things like haunted houses, ghosts, afterlife, consciousness, angels, all of that good stuff. And if that's up your alley, and I'm sure it is, you can hit that subscribe button, and also be sure to hit that little bell icon so you can be notified when I release new videos in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.